Welcome to Resolute and another edition of Man Talk. I am Vince Miller, your founder and host. So glad to have you with us. We're in a series that we have entitled 30 Virtues That Build a Man. Today we're looking at beliefs, which is the next chapter of the book. We're excited that you're joining with us. I am joined today by Jeff Link. Thanks for being with us, man.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today? You doing okay?
Oh, great day. It's beautiful outside.
Yeah, I
Very
know.
happy.
It's pretty nice for a Minnesota day, so we'll take these days any day of the week. But anyway, I want to dive into this lesson on beliefs because I really do believe that our mind determines our direction. It really does. The way that we think determines what's going to happen, how we're going to act and behave. It determines what motivates us. I mean, the motivation behind the whole thing is driving us all the time. I assume that some guys don't really ever stop to think about why they do the things that they do. Right?
I've been thinking mind leads the body lately about that. So yeah.
Right, but we don't. In our very busy world, we are challenged to take time to stop, reflect, and think. I think. Years ago, people used to stop and think a lot. There was a lot less busyness of life, a lot less sensory overload with entertainment and
cell phones.
I know. Cell phones, media, social media, computers.
For sure.
I mean, I've got like 10 of them sitting in this room, right?
Exactly.
So they're all over us.
Yep.
But I think, unfortunately, because we're over-consuming information
right.
all the time, sometimes we're actually believing lies. Do you agree with that?
I do, totally. I've been thinking a lot about that over the last few years, actually.
Okay.
And just a mind shift of what have I been believing, and just the marketing that's been sold to me that it's about me all the time.
Yeah.
The selfishness, I feel like. And not like in a heavy religious way, just why is life always about me? And it gets me into trouble in so many ways.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about an argument that or conversation I've had with my wife recently.
Okay, yeah.
And, I was really hard on her. I was just verbally using hard words. And it ended up being, it was about me. And I need to shift that. I need to change the way I'm thinking.
Yeah. I first off, I find it really hard to imagine you using hard words with your wife. That's a compliment, by the way.
Thank you.
But I also understand that, in those moments that we respond to people, right, we kind of let loose what we really believe, right? And how we respond says something about what we believe. So I got to ask you, when you were responding to your wife and you said you were having a challenging, air quote, conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like, you said something to her, but in reflecting on it, what did it speak to you about what you really believe about her or the situation?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't what I believe in her. That's the thing.
Okay.
It was my insecurities probably and my selfishness. She wasn't responding quick enough, maybe. She wasn't giving me the answer I wanted. So it goes all back to it's about me.
Yeah.
And if I would have stopped and listened and maybe took some time and thinking about where she's at, she had a bad day at work, those kind of things, it would have changed the outcome of that. And so it really is, there was some shame there, some guilt post that those hard words.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think those moments reveal so much about us, don't they?
Sure.
They reveal like how we think about a person, about ourselves, and about a situation, don't they? But we don't ever slow down to really think about it. We just say it, right? And then it's like, whoop, it's all on the table.
Yep.
I just blew that one. I'm going to have to come back and reconcile that one. So, and I think it's a great example of actions that reveal a mindset, right? Because actions, as much as we don't think that they expose who we really are, they actually do say something about the things that we believe.
I agree with that.
Right?
Yeah.
They really do. And I can get pretty close to the things you believe by the way that you act, right? So what corrupt belief did you have that led to that, you would call it maybe failure moment? What was the corrupt
tough
belief?
Question. Just that I needed to get my point across. I needed to be right in this situation. This is so important right now that I have to argue about that.
Right.
I have to say this and and say these words. And later on, I guess, like we talked about a minute ago, it's just that was totally wrong. If I would have paused and stopped, did some thinking, realizing that my actions aren't matching my beliefs.
Right. Yeah, it's really hard to do that now. And I would say, like, in a heated moment, especially when we're trying to win, and that's our mindset. Our mindset is to win.
Winning culture, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. We then set all of our beliefs aside, and unfortunately, we just act. But those actions reveal that. And I love that you said that. It's that you actually gave terminology to the pride that you were actually experiencing in that moment, right? And it said, I wanted something done this way.
How do we start changing the way we think about these things? What are some of the components that we can use?
Yeah, I think, changing our mindset is a very difficult process, I think, because there's so much going on with it. But if you wanted me to break it down a little bit, I think slowing down would probably help a little bit, right? Like if we just slowed down,
for sure.
If we kept our cake whole, should just a little bit our tongue, like especially in intense conversations. There's a whole bunch of tactics that we can talk about that would help us to slow down and reflect on what we're actually believing. But to be quite honest, I think there's only two things that help us to kind of renew or reset a mind. And these two things are very basic and simple. The first thing is the Bible. And the Bible speaks the truth to us about who we are. It's delivered to us supernaturally through men who were inspired to write it down. And it's from God. And if we believe that the Holy Scripture is from God himself, then that's his word. It's his truth outside of our system, right? Delivered into the system, right? And the second thing is brotherhood. So Bible and brotherhood.
Yeah, that's so good.
So reading the Bible together with other men. And I think what it does is it's constantly renewing our mind. It's refreshing our mind. You already talked about it. We live in a world that's saturated with lies. And I don't think they intentionally go about lying to us. Some people, some of them do. But they're trying to get us to buy things, to feed self. And this mindset is being fed self incessantly, repetitively, every day, constantly.
Right.
And I think this is a huge challenge for us because when we're fed that mindset, we begin to consume just self. And when you put yourself around Bible and brotherhood on a persistent basis, using tools like 30 Virtues That Build a Man, for example, and you're sitting down with Bible and brotherhood like we're doing right now, you are actually giving way to allowing your mind to be renewed. Like it talks about in Romans 12, 1 and 2, like we're constantly renewing the mind.
I love that verse.
Yeah, of course.
Those two verses,
I heard that was one of your favorite verses.
It is.
But if we're constantly renewing our mind around God's word, that's something stable and plumb and perfect and permanent and true every time, because God's truth works every time, and all truth is God's truth, right? It works every single time. It's very faithful. I think if we can put ourselves in front of that, then we can put ourselves in front of something that's stable. And that's how we renew our mind, is not placing our mindset on things that are unstable, that produce results like you experienced in your conversation with your wife, right? But we put ourselves in front of a mindset that's better than that.
It's funny that you bring up the number one thing is the Bible. I think it was like a few days, maybe a week before that, I was reading through James. And if you recall, I don't remember, maybe James 3 or 4, it talks about taming the tongue.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I read this a few days before. Did I apply this? Back to your Romans one. Did I apply this with my conversation with my wife? So it's, read the Bible. Now I need to get together with my guys and remind me, these are the verses. This is what's important.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, you said this and you just confessed this, but we can read a verse 2 days before, right, on our own, and then act out in a certain way 2 days later or minutes later, for that matter. But then we look back to it, right? So we go back to the situation, we reflect on it, we go, man, I'm not going to do that I'm going to do that differently from now on. That takes us back to the repentance lesson. I'm never going to do that ever again, right? And we just start moving down that road. Bible and brotherhood, I think, are the glue to renewing the mind over and over and and over again.
Are there other steps that we can take to develop this new way of thinking, this new mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the great challenges that men are going to face is they're going to have to unwind some old behavior patterns, right? And I think this is really where it begins. Is we're going to have to move from having a mindset on the flesh to a mindset on the spirit. So the text from this week in the book 30 Virtues That Build a Man is from Romans 8 verses 5 through 8. And it says in verse 5, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds on things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on things of the Spirit. We're talking about a mindset change, right? And I think what happens, Jeff, is we get a mindset on things of this world because the world's constantly reinforcing a mindset set on those things.
Agreed.
And we have to remove the triggers and the rewards from that life, right?
Yeah.
That world. So, like, for example, if I have a mindset toward winning in a conversation with my wife, and every time I want to win, I argue. The trigger is the need to win when I feel not listened to or argued with. I have to decouple that, right, from that mindset and that action of yelling, right, and getting aggressive.
Right. I like the word trigger and action.
Yeah, exactly. And we have these triggers that set us off, and we have to know what those are, and we have to decouple those from the rewards of winning.
Wow, that's perfect.
And when we decouple those two things, we now give that trigger a new reward. So if the trigger over here is, I don't feel listened to, therefore I'm going to fight.
Yeah.
Then the next time you experience that trigger, I don't feel listened to, you find a new reward to give that, right? And so instead of arguing, it's going to be, I don't feel listened to. Then you maybe choose to say, I don't feel listened to by you right now.
Change your pattern by the trigger.
Yeah, and then if your behavior changes, right, with that trigger and reward, so that trigger is given a different behavior, and that behavior then can change, leading to a new mindset. So we go from trigger and reward over here in a fleshly mindset to trigger, new reward, spiritual mindset. And it just brings those little behaviors beyond.
This is a spiritual battle.
It's totally a spiritual battle, right? But we can change it with tiny little behaviors, feeding them new things. Right. So we need a mindset that's set on the Spirit. I think that's where it all begins. Set it on the Spirit, the things of God.
That's awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much. I guess the next step is just, where do you begin?
I think that's where we have to begin with identifying the places where we have a bad mindset, right? That's where it all begins, is start to pay attention in your day to places where you have a bad mindset. And the only way to discover that is Bible and brotherhood, right? So that's where it all begins. Bible and brotherhood, then move into triggers and rewards and give them those rewards, those triggers, new rewards that lead to new motivations, new mindsets on the other side. And I would say, to really begin any of this process, right, we got to understand where our mindset stinks. We just have some stinking thinking, as they say in AA, right? That's a great terminology from Alcoholics Anonymous. We just have stinking thinking. And that's what gets us into repetitively bad patterns. Like, I know guys that shame themselves all the time, right? Guys that beat themselves up. One of my favorite little movie clips is from the movie Liar Liar. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I've seen that movie in a long time.
Love this experience in this movie, or this moment in the movie. But Jim Carrey's in a courtroom and he can't lie. He has to tell the truth, and he doesn't want to tell the truth. He wants to lie. That's right. So he dismisses himself from the courtroom and he goes to the bathroom. And he's in the bathroom and he wants to tell a lie, but he can't. So he ends up beating himself up in the bathroom. He's slamming his head against the sink. He's smashing his head against the wall. He's slapping himself in the face, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then someone opens up the bathroom door and they look at him and they say, "What are you doing?" And he, in appropriate terms, he says, "I'm kicking my own butt."
Right. Yeah.
And I go, that's exactly, some men live in that state of mind.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's good. I think that's a perfect metaphor for how some men live their lives. They live in a state of mind where they're constantly kicking their own butt. Right. And we've got to get out of that stinking thinking. We've got to get out of it. That's just one example.
Yeah.
because it's not that for every man. We have stinking thinking regarding our egos, our careers, our families, our sin.
For sure. Yeah.
Choices that we made in the past, choices that we hope to make in the future, our education or lack of it.
But we get stuck in those thinking. We get stuck in that instead of realizing we have that freedom on the other side.
Yeah,
of it.
that's exactly what Christ is, or Paul is talking about here in Romans, is we can renew this mind. It's possible.
Yeah.
We don't have to live in this old state of mind, right? There's a new mindset. So I don't know. I think that's where it all begins, is identifying the places in life where we need a renewed mindset, one step at a time. We can't do the whole thing, just one tiny step at a time.
Thanks. I will definitely apply that.
Yeah, try it out this week, see how it works. So, Jeff, thanks for being with us. Guys, so enjoy having you with us on Man Talk. This is so much fun to talk about things that actually matter, ways we can move forward together. I want to encourage you today to get a copy of 30 Virtues That Build a Man. It's a fantastic tool. It guides two guys to have discussions just like we're having here.
Yep.
This is just all from the book, man. It's all from the book. Very simple. 2-page chapters, 30 of them, 30 great virtues. You can have great conversations with another man about. Maybe it's a brother, neighbor, friend, work colleague, man at church. It doesn't really matter. Love for you to go to the website today at beresolute.org/30. It's /30 THRIR. Classic.
That was good.
Just spell it out, 30. And pick up your copy there today. And guys, man, I love you. Stay connected. Reach out anytime, and we'll see you next time on another edition of Man